I have to admit, while we're discussing the Black Sabbath thing, I have an extraordinary soft spot for that boom of stoner metal in the 90s, which really just essentially magnified the sound of the albums Master of Reality and Black Sabbath Volume 4 and created a little subgenre of sorts out of it. And it wasn't quite the gothic cathedral music of doom metal in the sense of we understood groups like Candlemass and whatnot, but it was closer to something sludgier. And there was a genre called sludge metal which emerged in the 2000s, Mastodon and things like that. Although initially in the 90s you had acts like Sleep in the United States and Electric Wizard in the United Kingdom. There was quite a number of acts inspired by the kind of tamer but still pretty cool desert rock scene, which Caius was the most well-known group of. And now in the 2010s to 2020s, there's a slew of these bands, and you can just find them all on YouTube. 666 Stoner Doom, all these channels dedicated to uploading as much of this music as possible. It's like people can't get enough of it. And part of me can't get enough of it. I find this music extremely entertaining, and the one I come back to, whether it's because I just have to applaud the perhaps just indulgent masturbatory nature of calling something Acid Mammoth, giving it the artwork of a mammoth. Mammoths are just the coolest. Like woolly mammoths are just sick. Like they're just cool. And so Acid Mammoth, a band that sounds like Black Sabbath or Sleep or Electric Wizard rather. It's just I can't not appreciate it immensely and spend at least 3 instances of my life listening to the album, and it's wound up being, like 13 instead. I wish 13 by Black Sabbath sounded more like this, but that was not to be. See, the Black Sabbath guys, I think, I don't know, they only wanted to explore this sound for so long, and then they probably, people, they grow up and they start to question everything they ever did in life, and so they stop thinking of their early works, which everyone loves, as any good, because they're like, I was just a stupid kid then, because they think of all the other stupid shit they did, as well as create the music they created. And, there was a producer overseeing it all and all that, There was a lot going into why albums by, say, the Stooges, or Black Sabbath, or Led Zeppelin, or whoever you want to name, David Bowie, Rolling Stones. There's a lot going into why these albums are any good. And so I think sometimes when we wonder, what happened? Why aren't these artists as good as they used to be? It's like, well, the artists know the answer to that as well as anyone. They either think that they weren't as brilliant as everyone else thinks they are, and they don't want to be relying on the same ideas and methodologies which they were relying on in, say, the 1970s, say, because they think of all the other stupid things they did in the 1970s that they might regret or not want to, or are not proud of, not want to tell anyone about. And also they'd be like, take the Beatles. The Beatles only thought they were successful because of Brian Epstein, their manager's savvy business. They weren't exactly, they wrote the songs. They weren't exactly, enamored with them. They knew them inside out. They figured that it was just because they were pushing our songs, they could have been anyone. Obviously, generations upon generations have been enamored of their music. So, I remember when I was in high school, there were girls my age who became obsessed with the Beatles via the internet, and it was quite fascinating to observe. They liked the Beatles and One Direction and, whatever else was out at that time. Now, does one have to be smoking anything to enjoy these sorts of albums? No, although the fact of the matter is they were composed with those scenarios in mind and probably composed thoroughly under the influence. So what else can you say to that? I mean, do they have merit outside of those situations? Probably not to many who don't. I think there's certain music that doesn't make as much sense to people who don't consume alcohol, and probably certain sports for that matter. And so I sometimes suspect that it's fair to claim that this is the case for many of these well, I mean, they are called stoner metal acts. There may have been some reason behind that. It's not that I'm impressed by it as such. It's not that I'm in awe of it. It's more that I'm relieved by it. I feel a certain satisfaction that something exists that is precisely this, something I could have imagined and daydreamed of. Oh, if only an album that just took the core of a sound, put it out there over the course of a 30 to 40 something minute album experience, wherein the songs, they don't even feel like different songs. It's almost like one different track permutating, and the different songs sound similar enough, so it may as well be, one could take that as a detriment. This is the kind of band I could be inspired to create, you know. It's just something that's so insular and gravitating around my own interests, to the point where I'd think, oh, no one else would like this, everyone would just think this is absolute wank. But fortunately, the group Acid Mammoth existed in place of my having to do so, thanks guys, really appreciate it.